I was watching a program today on MSNBC, and a congressman, I think it's Max Rose, came on, and they were discussing about the airplane, about the 747 that Qatar has donated to Donald Trump. And he was all elated and excited because he believes that this is something that Democrats should pick up and run with. You know, the emoluments clause and the grift and the corruption of Donald Trump with this plane. So he thinks this is something that we should put a lot of weight into. I want you to see how he says it. He really believes that. He wants to take on Donald Trump on that plane.
So this is a very different instance, but one that I think forces the conversation, and I think Congress has an opportunity to act here. And I'm grateful that people like Secretary Haley are joining a bipartisan caucus of voices and speaking out against this.
I'll give you the last word, Max.
You know, I would just say here, this is the issue Democrats should be talking about. As we're talking about, you know, they throw so much at us each and every day, and it starts to feel a little schizophrenic on the part of the Democrats because there's so many horrendous things happening. This is an 80-20 issue. Donald Trump prides himself and his acolytes pride themselves on taking the right side of 80-20 issues. Well, in this instance, they're on the 20% issue. Nobody supports taking a $400 million payoff bribe from a nation overseas at the same time that you're being on the side of billionaires and cutting Medicaid. It's a clear story of corruption and being against hardworking Americans. That's the narrative that's going to win back the House and the Senate in just a few short years.
Former Congressman Max Rose.
Now, it's an 80-20 issue. Hey, Democrats, talk about it. Talk about that airplane. Talk about Trump's corruption. Wait a minute. Isn't Trump the person who got rid of Roe v. Wade? Wasn't Roe v. Wade like maybe a 65-35 or a 60-40 proposition somewhere around? And he won? Wasn't this guy a guy who was convicted of all these other crimes, many, many felonies, and he won? Wasn't this guy the guy who took money out of a charity for personal use, stole money out of a charity for personal use, and he won? Wasn't this guy who had a fake university, ripped off millions, thousands of people, and had to pay restitution of over $25 million, and he won? Wasn't this guy who ripped off employees that did work for him at his different casinos that all went bankrupt? And wait a minute, and he still got elected? Wasn't this guy who, what did he do again? Oh, wasn't this the guy who actually went ahead and assaulted a woman, and a judge called it out as, if it were rated today, it would be called rape, and he got elected? Democrats have to wake up. Donald Trump is a crook. Donald Trump is a thug. Donald Trump has been said by a judge to be a rapist. Donald Trump is all those, and he got elected, including by a majority of some. That is not the way to win against Donald. Those things are already assigned. We are still a patriarchy. We are still, a large portion of us still are fidgety with white supremacy. The only way to beat and win decisively is to take on subjects that go to the core of everybody. And the airplane is not one of them. Yes, you can use the airplane to remind progressives and to remind a few marginal Republicans that, yeah, this guy, look at what he did. It is okay to do that. But the major issues is just as Bernie Sanders have been saying decade after decade. It's economics. I don't care if I do care. But what I'm saying, when it comes to earning somebody's vote or getting somebody votes, I don't care if they're a sexist. I don't care if they're a racist. I don't care if they're a homophobe. I don't care if they're a xenophobe. I want to get to what they care about, because I can work on their hearts. It'll take years to work on their hearts, but I can work on what materially affects them to get their vote. That's what Donald Trump and all his peons do. They had people believing that it was okay to overlook that he was a thug. It's okay to overlook that he was a mob boss, because selfishly, we allowed our willful ignorance to think it was worth electing this guy. Yeah, there are some other biases that played in, but Obama went through all those biases, and Obama, by being the way he learned how to break it. There are a lot of newcomers in the chat. There are a lot of newcomers that are listening. So I'm going to tell you when I knew Obama was going to win that election. When Obama went into Pennsylvania, not Obama, but his canvassers went into Pennsylvania, and a canvasser asked the woman at the door. I know a lot of you have heard it, but many haven't. A lot of canvassers went to the door of this woman, this white woman, and they asked her, "Who are you voting for?" And she turned to her husband. I don't know why, but she turned to her husband. "Honey, who are we voting for?" And they turned back and said, the husband said, "Tell them we're voting for the N guy." A lot of people think, you get upset because they use the N word. I really don't care about that. I don't care. I care about humanity, and I'm caring about what I can do, what we can do. When they said that, the bells went off in my head. Obama cracked the code. The code was he gave a message that convinced that person to put his prejudices aside and vote for his economic interest. The message was such that he could put his prejudice aside and vote his economic interest. And that is what Democrats have got to do. You don't have to go out there and turn an anti-abortionist, an anti-abortionist into somebody who support women's rights. You don't need to do that. You don't need to convince a racist not to be a racist. You don't need to convince a homophobe not to be a homophobe. What you need to do is figure out what it is they need from you to get their vote for the better good of society in the aggregate. And if we start thinking that way, that is how, by the way, that is not some ingenious thinking on my part. That is how they campaign. The evangelicals have nothing in common with a plutocrat. Nothing. In fact, plutocrats screw evangelicals all the time. But evangelicals wanted something, and the plutocrats gave it to them. The plutocrats gave it to them, and the plutocrats continue to give the impression that they will continue giving them what they want to get. And when we educate ourselves into thinking practically, and look, that is what Bernie Sanders have preached. The Democratic Party throws Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They disregard them. Some of the more, straight Democrats who has to pure, they want to make sure that, you toe the line. Make sure you're absolutely not racist. Make sure you're absolutely not sexist. Make sure you're absolutely not anything. And if you get stuck on that issue, they get stuck on that issue, and that's all they talk about, right? But when we learn, as Bernie Sanders do, get to the issues that everybody believes they have to have, and then you'll get there. I remember back at a Netroots. Netroots. This is the largest group of progressives meet every year. In fact, we're going to New Orleans this year. We had Bernie Sanders come in, and and Black Lives Matter came in and break up Bernie Sanders's. There's a long message, and the idea was they wanted him to get a part of his message to include. And I had mixed feelings about that. But at the time, it was during when the cop that beat the guy, whatever his name was, I can't remember it right. And I could understand it was okay for Bernie to go ahead and his speech, and he did. By that night, we had 15,000 people at that hotel, the convention center, and he did change his message in such a manner that it included It included the boot on the guy's neck and why we needed racial justice and all of that. But I would like that to be done. But we are not changing anybody's heart with an election. We change that in between elections and all those years that need things to be covered. That's what we need. And when we learn that, progressives should know that, but when Democrats learn that, then their elections would be landslides because we are where the people are. That is why you see Josh Hawley says in his New York op-ed, we are trying to stop being the party of the plutocrats. We are trying to be the party of the working class because, again, that's the only way we can get some growth. And you know what? We were making inroads. Of course, they were using sexism and all of those to get inroads, which they got the sexist black folks, they got the sexist Latino folks, they got a racist group of women, etc. to that coalition that they built. But we could have built a better coalition.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.